I want to ask you to put your magazine editor hat on. This is what NBC News is reporting Trump plans to do in terms of counter-programming, I guess you call it. He could, quote, time his booking in Georgia to coincide with next week's first Republican presidential primary debate. Quote, put another way, it's not at all hard to imagine Trump turning his jailhouse arrival into an O.J. Simpson in the Bronco-level spectacle. At the same time, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is telling the debate audience about how he lowered the state's pension assumptions. I think we know enough about Ron DeSantis to know he'll be talking about something else, probably, you know, a noun, a verb, and the woke stuff. But what should we do if that is what Trump decides to do next week?
So one of the things I found a little dismaying about the reporting about this already is that if you look at Trump's own vocabulary and language, he says, you know, indisputable evidence, major press conference. And I see some reporting, even in wire services, you know, Trump to hold a major press conference on Monday. That's using his language. That's not. It's like,
what's his name's coffin, right? That Geraldo is going to unveil. I mean, it's like there's nothing inside. There is no irrefutable evidence. There's nothing in there.
Well, because he is the programmer. He's
Correct.
The carnival barker.
So what do we do? How do you ignore it?
I think you don't cover it in real time. You fact check it as he goes. I mean, it's already been indisputably proven that there wasn't election fraud in Georgia. I don't know what he can come out with. I mean,
nothing. There isn't anything.
Right. And his lawyers have got to be nervous about it. But to your point, his trial is his campaign. Yes, he's using everybody as human shields, but the whole campaign will be about his guilt or his innocence. And listening to David talk, I mean, one of the things that I find a little dismaying is when we even use traditional political language, like Joe Biden talks about GDP and ladders of opportunity. I mean, Trump just throws crap all over that. And he's changed the whole vocabulary of campaigns. I'm not even sure that traditional campaign language works with a lot of voters anymore. And that's what Trump wants. That's why his lawyers are interchangeable, because the law is a sham to him.
Right. Right. I mean, and I think the opportunity for Joe Biden isn't to abandon the language, I think, that makes up the building blocks of his life in public service. It's to find the things that he's on the right side of, which I mean, abortion is a majority-minority issue. Republicans know they're in a super minority on abortion. I mean, the sort of things he's done, the infrastructure bill, you know how popular that is? Because Mitch McConnell wanted to go with him on Air Force One. I mean, but it is about abandoning some of that language that sounds wonky and grabbing people's emotions.
But it also might be that kind of return to normalcy kind of campaign. It's like, oh, there's a guy using traditional language. Maybe it's a little old-fashioned, but that's sort of.
Doesn't it feel more dire to be like return to normal? Doesn't it feel like the state? I mean, Trump is running, and I don't like relative conversations. I believe Trump has represented the gravest threat to American democracy since 2014, as he does. I don't think one campaign is worse than the other. But I think that when you look at how animated he can get the right with his messages of being retribution, it just feels like you know, returning to something old and tried feels risky.
Well, here's the good news, and you turned me into an optimist, which I am not anywhere else. But your vision is dire. I have to come up with a good solution. He's not going to gain one more vote.
Correct.
That he doesn't have already. He's going to lose votes. The mills of God grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly small. He's in the legal system now. Look at all the polls that show, yeah, maybe he did something wrong for people who never questioned him. He's going to be in and out of court. It can't extricate himself in the way that he used to, where he would fool the legal system and turn it into kind of a buffoonish thing. He can't do that anymore. And that will intersect with the campaign. And I think people will just get tired of it. That's my optimistic view.
I welcome optimism. David, do you buy that?
I do. Look, I mean, if you're Joe Biden and the Democrats, you need to turn out every single vote of the 54% of the country that's available to you on Election Day. And obviously, there's calculus for the Electoral College. So what message does that? I think it's a combination of what you and Rick are discussing. I think you talk about the policy, the successes regarding the economy, a safe and stable world, and lifting up all people. And perhaps the way you approach the danger of Donald Trump is actually through a visionary, a more visionary perspective perspective of Joe Biden, that I will also be a candidate that protects democracy, protects voting rights, protects personal rights, protects the republic, protects the judicial branch, and allows us to achieve all these things together through the regular constitutional process. I will be that guy. It is a sense of normalcy you'll have with me as we achieve these great things together. We'll do it within the constitutional construct that has blessed us for over 200 years. You can do that and convince enough American people that say, you know what? I see here a visionary who's willing to protect the rule of law and achieve these things together. And in contrast, I see someone who's saying, please vote for me so I can absolve my own criminality.